Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Radha Kund Bihari, Radha Kund Bihari, Radhe, Radha Kund Bihari, Radha Kund Bihari, Radhe, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Haradeva Mai Subhaja, Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Bala Gopal, Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Bala Gopal, Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Gurudeva, 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 Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Hari Nam Sankirtana Ki Jai, Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nanta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnana-timirandasya
Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurumilitam yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam yena bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Rudrapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha
Sv-alpam sadagatam savana raghunatam vitam tam sajivam sarvarikam savadutam varijanasahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitam Cha.
Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute.
Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Parevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavani Paschatadeshatarine. Jai Shri
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasari Gaura.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
So, as we enter our holiday week of Independence Day, we'll discuss our great dependence on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, we read Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurumilitam yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So, Krishna has been speaking to Arjuna in this second chapter, instructing him on how to find this perfection of life, this happiness and peace. And the very first instruction Krishna gave Arjuna, what did he tell him? What was the very first instruction? General topic. It's the first instruction we learn. We say it every time we're here.
To have faith.
Have faith. Huh? We are not the body. We are
Right. The spirit soul.
we are spirit soul. And we said that is the foundational understanding from which everything else is built upon. Like a home, it's built first on a concrete foundation. From there the walls come, the floors come, the furnishings come. But the foundation must be strong, very solid, for there be long-term success of the home. So our long-term success in spiritual endeavors is to build the foundation of, I am spirit soul. I am not this body. And it teaches us to understand that all the different things we look at in life, the different decisions we have to make, the different encounters we face, the different situations that confront us, if we look at it through the lens, I am spirit soul, I am not this body, we'll find great peace, happiness, and clarity. Because doubt bewilders us, and it creates fear, it creates anxiety, it creates concerns, right? So, Krishna has been speaking, and last week we talked about this. Anybody remember the two birds? What are the two birds?
He is with us, but he's gonna let us do what we want.
Yeah. So who are we in this picture? The bird. What is the bird doing? It's eating. Yeah, it's goofing around. Right? So within our heart is our spirit soul, but also residing right next to us is the super soul, Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, sitting right in our heart. And we as the living entity, we get to choose. Either I'm going to act on the platform, I am this body, or I'm going to act on the platform that I am the soul. Either I'm the car, or either I'm the driver. We get to pick. No one will force upon us. So Krishna is sitting in our heart, like this second bird on this tree. And he is observing all of our activities, observing what we are doing. And based on our desires and our qualification, he fulfills all of our desires. If we don't want to know, I am this body, I am spirit soul, Krishna will fulfill that. If we don't want to know the Lord and we want to live a life of sinful, he'll facilitate that. But on the other hand, if we have a desire to know who am I and how to find this great happiness, he is sitting in this tree in our heart. So we may think, well, Arjuna, he could ask Krishna, but we don't have that same benefit. Actually, Krishna is right here, sitting in our heart. We have the exact same opportunity that Arjuna had to inquire. It is simply a matter of when we're going to detach from the fruits of this material world and look to our friend, the Supreme Lord, who is eagerly waiting to guide us step by step on how to return back to our eternal position. So as we said, the Super Soul will not interfere with our decisions, not going to tell us what to do, but simply react to our desires. So we all have all gathered here because we have some desire, some inclination to try to find out this perfect science. So Krishna spoke for almost 20 verses on the nature of the soul, how it is eternal, how it is passing from body to body, dihinoshmin yatha dehe kamanam yavanam jara tatha dehantara praktir nirastatra namuyati. He said the spirit soul is constantly changing through the bodies. So what is there to lament? What is there to fear about the changing of the bodies? So in today's verse, we're going to talk about fear. We don't want to talk about fear, but we should address it to know how to overcome it. Anybody enjoys fear? No, nobody enjoys it. Right? It is what causes our inability to enjoy, is the presence of fear. So Krishna is going to speak about that. But he told Arjuna, don't fear about those across the battlefield. They are spirit soul, indestructible. And then last week we discussed about this fruit of desires. Right? We won't spend so much time today. But Krishna was telling Arjuna, even if you don't have a spiritual goal in your duties on this battlefield, you should still fight. Because if you want to achieve pious credits, you want to do some good and receive some pious credits, you should do your duty. You're a Kshatriya. No, if you're looking for your happiness, running to the forest and being called a coward is not going to be tolerable because you are a Kshatriya. You have a nature that doesn't tolerate insults. And we all have different natures. Some are very easy to tolerate, and some have quite a fiery mood that is based on our nature. Right? So now, Krishna is going to speak. It's very important. This is one of my favorite verses of the Bhagavad Gita, but also of this second chapter. And Krishna is giving us some strong confidence to begin to practice our spiritual life. He's giving us a strong motivation to begin. Technically, he is speaking in this section about Buddhi Yoga, which is very close to Bhakti. We'll talk about Bhakti, they're very similar. But why to practice devotional service? What is the advantage? And great system Krishna has created for us to inspire us to spend some time every day making some deposits into our spiritual bank account. Okay? We all want to make deposits into our bank account. We're going to compare the material bank account from our spiritual bank account. Okay? Are we ready to make some deposits today? All right. So, somebody can read this verse. This is the 40th verse of the second chapter, page 107. You can read the verse.
In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear.
Okay. Report.
Activity in Krishna consciousness or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification is the highest transcendental quality of work. Even a small beginning of such activity finds no impediment, nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. Any work begun on the material plane has to be completed, otherwise the whole attempt becomes a failure. But any work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect even though it's not finished. The performer of such work is therefore not at a loss even if his work in Krishna consciousness is incomplete. One person done in Krishna consciousness appears permanent results, so that the next beginning is from the point of 2%, whereas a material activity without 100% success there is no profit. Ajamila performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the result he enjoyed at the end was 100% by the grace of the Lord. There is a nice verse in this connection in Srimad Bhagavatam. If someone give up his occupational duties and work in Krishna consciousness and then falls down on account of not completing his work, what loss is there on his part? And what can gain if one performs his material activity perfectly, or as the Christian says, what profit a man if he gains the whole world yet suffer the loss of his eternal soul? Material activities and their results end with the body, but work in Krishna consciousness carries a person again to Krishna consciousness even after the loss of the body. At least one is sure to have a chance in the next life of being born again as a human being, either in the family of a great cultured Brahmana or in such aristocratic family that will give one's further chance for elevation. That is the unique quality of work done in Krishna consciousness.
Okay. So Krishna is saying here, there in this endeavor, which endeavor?
Krishna consciousness.
Krishna consciousness. There is no loss or diminution.
What's diminution?
That's what I was going to ask. What is the meaning of diminution? Thank you. That's exactly what I said. Always one step ahead of me. I like that. What does diminution mean?
Getting diminished in some sort of form. Reducing.
Reducing in value, right? If I have $1 today, will it gain in value or diminish in value in 50 years?
Probably gain.
Diminish, right? What $1 bought 50 years ago doesn't buy the same today, right? It diminishes in value. So Krishna is saying there's no loss or diminution. We'll speak about that. And a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So we'll talk a little bit about the most dangerous type of fear and what that is and what we may think it is.
Isn't fear just how you look at things?
To some
Because what I
degree.
fear is different than what you fear.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. Yes. What you fear, what I fear may be different. And I'm going to get us, hopefully, on scripture to have the same fear. And the only fear that really matters. Not spiders versus snakes. But what is the real fear? And how to overcome fear. Because fear is crippling. It's no fun. Nobody enjoys that. So how to overcome it, right? So we have 2 types of activities we can perform. What are the 2 types of activities we perform? There's only 2.
Krishna consciousness.
Krishna consciousness
Or not.
or not. Every day we wake up. We have a choice. Shall I work for the body or shall I work for the soul? Shall I perform my spiritual activities, my Krishna consciousness, or should I try to enjoy the pangs of the body? That's it. Are there any other choices?
No.
That's it. Every day we face this decision tree. Left or right? So how are we going to decide which one to do? Based on what criteria? Which gives us more happiness? Which is better for me? Right? Is there any other criteria at the end? Which is better for me? Which is going to give me the most happiness? The least troubles? Okay. Why do we go and choose to labor in the office? We think, well, I don't want to go to the office. But we choose to do so. Why?
Because we want money.
Because we want money. And what is money going to do?
Buy us stuff.
Gaia stuff that we think will get some enjoyment out of. So we're willing to endure the labor of work for the outcome which will yield to some enjoyment. So material activities relate to the body. Right? We talked about this a few weeks ago, and even 2 weeks ago, Rangapriya Prabhu was speaking about it. Right? These activities of feeding the body, seeing nice things, enjoying our senses, those are our material body activities. Spiritual activities, like this. Our chanting, our singing the glories of the Lord, rendering service. Right? So we know at a high level, material activities, the type of happiness has 2 characteristics. What are the 2 characteristics again?
Temporary.
Temporary. It doesn't last. And limited. There's only so much happiness I can extract from the greatest movie made of all time. At some point, I cannot no longer extract any more happiness from it. It's limited. And that movie will entertain me for only a certain amount of time. If I watch it every day for the rest of my life, will I find happiness from it? Because it's temporary. Your favorite food. If you ate that breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 1 month straight, by day 30, will that still remain your favorite food?
No.
No.
Because it's limited. It's temporary. If you chant the holy names of the Lord from day 1 to day 30, what happens? You get a different experience on day 30 than on day 1. If we're not, maybe we have to adjust some process. But we know it's because the spiritual activities are unlimited. They are ever increasing. So that's material and spiritual activities. Now, material activities, Prabhupada gives us a comment, right? That in material endeavors, something has to happen for us to yield the result in material endeavors. And what is that? Prabhupada says in the purport, for every material endeavor, in order to generate our desired outcome, what has to happen?
Concentrate on doing things.
You have to concentrate on both material and spiritual activity. You have to finish it. You know, this beautifully hand-carved chair. It's made from the rarest teak wood. 1,000 hours of skilled labor to manufacture this piece. Looks very comfortable the way the seat is set. Okay? It's a perfect chair. But if it's not finished, what is the value of that chair?
Nothing.
It's zero value. It's almost there. 95%. But what is the value?
Nothing.
You're cooking some nice foodstuffs in the kitchen. You decide to grow a garden. You decide to cultivate it nicely, put the best fertilizer, plant the seeds. Every day you're watering. Every day you're pulling the weeds that might inhibit the growth. You watch these plants grow. You watch the vegetables grow. You find the perfect time to extract them from the plant when they're most ripe and ready. And then you chop and clean these vegetables. And you put them in the pan. And you're cooking them to the perfect temperature. And you add all the spices. And you go through all this endeavor. And then you sit down after you've offered to the Lord. And you begin to eat. And you forgot salt. What happens to your enjoyment? All that endeavor. Is it worthwhile?
No.
Until it's 100% complete, material endeavors don't yield the satisfaction. You go through all the university, all the exams, all first year, second year, third year. And in the fourth year, you decide to just coast. That last exam, you decide not to take. Will the certificate come? And will the employer give you the job?
No.
You have all the knowledge. But that endeavor was not completed. This is the nature of material activities. But in spiritual activities, what happens? Is it the same formula?
Even the smallest effort is multiplied.
Even the smallest effort is multiplied. What that means? We take one step to Krishna. Krishna takes thousands of steps to us. It is not a one-to-one relationship. He wants to see the smallest of endeavor. And what happens if we don't complete the endeavor?
That's
We
okay.
continue with the next.
It continues in the next. Right? Our bank accounts. How long do our bank accounts last us?
Not very long.
Not very long. Let me ask. What Bill Gates takes birth again? Does he get to pick up where he left off?
No.
No.
He is penniless.
He may.
Hmm?
He may.
He may? So Bank of America, where he has his money, we'll see.
If he gets become his grandson, like the next
That is all based on.
karma.
Karma.
But that money, that material wealth, it ends when?
The body dies.
With the body. It is attached to the body. Gone. Gone. Albert Einstein. In his next birth, ABCs all over again. 2 plus 2. All over again. Does not get to pick up where he left off. So all of the material affairs we're working so hard to acquire, we know they are going to end. We know it absolutely. And this becomes the substance of our fear. Because we know it's going to end. It creates anxiety. That I may lose it. That is the nature of fear. Now, our spiritual bank accounts. What happens to that?
Stays. Yeah.
Because the spiritual bank accounts are attached to the
Soul.
soul. The material bank account is attached to? Body is?
Temporary.
Soul is?
Eternal.
So logical, right? It makes total sense. Whatever we do spiritually is eternally ours. Nobody can take it away. But the extra benefit, the way Krishna has designed this system, he says, even if you make a little bit of progress in devotional life, there is no loss. If you, whatever progress you make in your material life, and then when it ends, you have to restart from ground zero again. But Krishna says, no. Whatever you do in spiritual life, that is your eternal benefit. Nobody can take it away. And thus he says, there is no loss or diminution in this endeavor. Endeavor means to put forth some energy. Right? So in the Christian faith, it says that we should build our homes not on the beach, but on solid rock. Meaning, we know you build a sandcastle on the beach, and every moment, what is coming closer and closer? The tide. And eventually the tides will wipe everything away. So we are busy acquiring all of these material things. But we know every moment, nobody wants to talk about it, but it's the reality. The waves of time are coming towards us. And eventually, all of it will be wiped. So now you have a choice. I can work spiritually or materially. One, whatever progress I make, I get to keep and continue from that point forward. Even 1% complete is 1% complete. But in that chair, 95% complete. But how much value? 0. Nothing. Nothing. So Krishna is saying, what is the hesitation? Even if we think, wow, I'll never be able to do X, Y, and Z, just start making some deposits into your spiritual bank account. Whatever we deposit today will stay with us forever. And whatever we deposited yesterday and deposit tomorrow is ours. This is the great promise the Lord says. And He says, you don't have to become my perfect devotee overnight. Don't worry. Just start. And who is going to help us?
Krishna.
He is sitting in the tree right next to us. He's waiting to put on His back and take us home. He's willing to carry us. See, He is even driving His beloved Arjuna. Right? So there is no loss or diminution. So what is fear? I agree, it's in the eye of the beholder. But how would you define fear?
Anxiety about an upcoming event.
Anxiety about an upcoming event?
Not wanting something to happen, but not being able to control it not happening.
Not wanting something to happen and not being able to stop it or control it from happening?
Fear is the feeling of losing something that you love.
The fear of losing something you love. Or I'll add one more word. Value. Right? In the end, that is in some ways the summation of fear. The dictionary says, an unpleasant, often strong emotion caused by anticipation or awareness of danger. So Krishna is saying, in this 40th verse, protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. How many of us would like to become fearless?
Many types of fears.
Many types of fears. How many types? I saw this. This was some survey done. And the pie chart is giving all these different, wild animals, monsters, mechanical problems, theft, injury, running out of food, getting lost, bad weather, being alone, and then other.
What's the largest one? The green one?
Not being able to finish.
Overexertion, not able to finish.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So the point is, fear is multifaceted. And we all have independent. But we want to become fearless. Right? So Krishna is saying, in this endeavor. Which endeavor?
Krishna consciousness.
Spiritual life. What will we gain protection from?
Everything.
The most dangerous type of fear. How many of us would like protection from the most dangerous type of fear? We'd consider that to become very strong. So Krishna is saying, by Krishna consciousness, by devotional service, one becomes fearless. Now why? Do I all of a sudden, if I put my hand in a bead bag, some shield will go around me, I'll become bulletproof? Will I grow really big muscles so that nobody can harm me? This is not some mystical process. This is a substantive process. So how does spiritual life make us fearless? Let us explore. So you said that fear is the fear of losing something we value or love. When you put your trash out under the curb, do you fear losing your trash?
No.
Why?
Because
Because it's not valuable. I don't care about it. Actually, I want it gone. So we don't fear the loss of our trash. when we have the flu? Do we fear the losing of all those bacteria that are inhibiting our body? No, because we don't want it. We don't love it. So what is it that we fear? What are the different types of things that we fear?
Death.
Death. Why death?
Because it's an end.
It's an end. What do we lose at death?
Your body,
And
all the material things associated.
everything around it. We have worked so hard to acquire so many relationships, friends, certificates, money, homes, fame, accomplishments. Anybody has lost something or had something stolen from them? Is that a fun experience?
No.
It's painful. It's painful, isn't that?
Yeah.
We've all lost a loved one. That is extraordinarily painful.
Yeah.
So why is death so painful? Because we're not losing one thing. But why does it create fear? Because we put value to it. Now, as one comes to Krishna consciousness, what does one value?
The soul.
The soul. And understands what is the nature of the body? Dhiras tatra na muyati. Dhiras, the sober person. He's not bewildered by the changing of the body. Why? He's not attached to the body. What is he attached to?
Soul.
The soul. It's not like he's detached from everything and says, no, I don't want to. No. He's fully attached to Krishna. Okay? But why doesn't he fear losing Krishna?
Because that's eternal.
Because it's eternal. There is no loss or diminution. What one values is their spiritual life, their progress in spiritual life. And that cannot be burned by any fire, cannot be taken by any thief, cannot be taken by the evils of time. No one can take that from us. So when we're walking down the road and some fearful situation occurs, if I think I am this body, I'm attached to this body, I'll become extraordinarily fearful. But if I remember I am spirit soul, wait a minute. My spiritual life is intact. If something's going to happen to my body at this moment, no problem. What's going to happen? I pick up right where I left off. Soul is... If we can have that rational conversation in the midst of that fearful situation, we become pacified. So, as we begin to understand material activities, spiritual activities, what it is that we begin to value and love comes to the nature of the soul. So all of our material things, they are a means or a process to our spiritual life. So does that mean our material assets are unimportant? Our relationships, our family, our wealth, our home, our education, our intelligence, job, degree, certificate, they're important if they're connected to our spiritual life. If they're disconnected from the spiritual life, they provide no purpose. No real purpose. So, how to become fearless is to begin to value what is really valuable. So we, by nature, are putting our love in things that, by definition, we're going to lose them. We're going to lose them. There's no choice. You know, it's like a child who's on vacation and they fall in love with the place. I don't want to go anywhere. Maha says, why are you falling? We gotta go eventually. Enjoy it. Use it. But don't become attached to it. Because you know it's gonna be fun. That's rational thinking. But when it comes to our lives, we become so attached. So Krishna is saying, when one practices this endeavor, what is there to fear? And actually, what should be our greatest fear? I said, we're all going to come to the platform of obtaining the same fear, and it's not spiders or snakes or airplanes or boats or whatever. What is the single fear we should have as spirit soul?
Losing our connection to
Losing our connection to Krishna. And we said, how many species of life are there? 8.4 million species of life. And only in this human form of life can one inquire. Who am I? Who is God? Why am I here? What is my relationship with the Lord? How can I find peace and happiness? Only in the human form of life. So, in the Srila Upanishad, it speaks of Atmaha. Atma, soul. The killer of the soul. It's not killing the soul. The souls are eternal. It's killing of the opportunity for the soul to reconnect with the Supreme Lord. And that exists in this human form of life. If we don't utilize this human form of life for this purpose, what is the risk? That we end up going right back down all 8.4 million species of life. We have lived in every life form at least once. How many more times? We don't know. But at least once, we have been that fly, and the tree, and the bird, and the insect, and the blade of grass, and that microorganism. All 8.4 million species. And in none of those could we pick up a Bhagavad Gita and read, in this endeavor there is no loss or diminution. But now, due to great work, we have acquired this human form of life. And even more important, we have acquired some desire to come and begin to hear and inquire and practice our spiritual life. It is the greatest of fortune. That is the fortune we want to protect and cherish. Because everything else is going to come and go anyways. But that, our spiritual life, if we protect it with sincerity, with association, with practice, we can then eternally go back home. No more. So this is what so the Lord says, in this endeavor, no loss or diminution. Whatever you do, 1% today is 1% today. It is never lost. It is the eternal bank account. And a little advancement on this path can protect us from this cycling through. Why? Because as soon as one begins their Krishna consciousness, one is guaranteed to make progress from there. As long as we don't make offenses in our devotional service. We'll talk about that later. We must be careful of that. But as soon as one starts, how powerful it is. If one has even a single grain of foodstuffs that have been offered to the Lord, grain, fruit, anything, even a glass of water, that person is guaranteed a human form of life in their next birth. Now, what to speak of one who begins to chant every day? begins to read, begins to render service. What great protection one receives. And so every time we chant a round of japa, we are making deposits into our eternal bank account. Every time we read a verse from Bhagavad Gita, deposits. Every time we go to the temple and sing and dance for the Lord, maybe render some service, we are making deposits. Every time we come and associate like this, deposits. And those deposits are never subject to any bankruptcy of the bank. They don't need any FDIC insurance. It is insured by Krishna, the Supreme Protector. So this can give us some faith to start today in whatever way we can and begin to practice, because in this endeavor there is no loss or diminution. This is the 40th verse. Any questions, comments? Yes?
So it's a very vague question, but 8.4 million species of life that we go through before coming to a human life. Does this go in a sequence? Is there a particular sequence, like first you become a tree, then etc., etc.? Is there a sequence?
There is a sequence, and there's also a way to bypass the sequence.
As you said.
And it's based on the degree of our activities and our desires. So it's explained that yam yam vapis manam bhavam tyajante kalevadam ya prayati samadbhavam. I'm sorry, I mixed up those two verses. Yam yam vapis manam bhavam tyajante kalevadam. This is in the 8th chapter. Krishna says that whatever you desire at the end of this birth, you'll achieve. So there's a famous story in Srimad Bhagavatam of Bharat Maharaj. And Bharat Maharaj was a great devotee, and he was practicing Krishna consciousness. But at the end of towards the very end of his life, he became very attached to a deer, a baby deer. And at one point he became separated from this baby deer in the forest. And he began to walk out and search for my dear deer, my dear deer, my dear doe. Where are you? Where are you? And he died. He left his body, thinking of this deer. And so he came back in his next life as a deer. But all of his spiritual life, there is no loss or diminution. So as he was roaming the forest in the body of a deer, he thought, oh, wow, how foolish I was to forget Krishna and think of this deer. So even in the deer body, where we say only in the human form of life, one can practice spirituality. But because of his prior endeavor, there was no loss or diminution. And so he went back to that same ashram that he was at. And he said, I'm going to stay here, and I'll pass here. And I pray to come back. And he came back as in a Brahminical family. And then he progressed, and he protected himself again. He actually acted as an insane person. Why? He was not insane. But we know, if somebody acts insane, everybody stays away. So not to be disturbed by anyone. He went his whole life. He didn't care what people said about his body. He was concerned about his spiritual life. I'm summarizing several chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam about this great pastime of Bharat Maharaj. Maybe one day we'll share the whole pastime. But this shows how one can go from human to deer and back to human. And in this story of Ajamil is mentioned here. So maybe next time we meet, we'll talk about Ajamil. But Ajamil shows, is very important. It comes in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's extraordinarily instructive how powerful the holy names are. That Ajamil, not even trying to call out the names of the Lord, called out to his son, who was also called Narayan. But by calling out to his son, whose name was Narayan, Krishna took that as devotional service. And he was saved and became a perfect devotee. After losing. So So we'll talk about that maybe next week or maybe at the end. Question?
If you're a deer, how do you practice Krishna consciousness to become a human again?
Yeah. So he could not practice Krishna consciousness in the sense, but he could. I mean, actually, in animal life, we can see that they can perform some devotional service. You know, if you're an animal, like an elephant, and you're giving ride to but it's not conscious, it's subconscious. But in his special case, he had cognition, he had remembrance of his prior life. So he went back to the ashram where he stayed, and he left. And his desire at leaving that body was to come back in a human form of life so he could complete his spiritual path and go back home to Godhead. So that desire in the deer body manifested and he came back. So, but that's a very special benediction, and that was blessed upon him because of his great devotion as Bharat Maharaj.
Okay, I have one more question.
Yeah.
People who practice Christian consciousness, why do they get married and have kids if they know it's all going to just be painful?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in Krishna consciousness, why get married? Why have children? Why enter the grihastha ashram? Right? So there's 4 different ashrams of life, or 4 different aspects of life, and one of them is family life. And most people are in family life. And the one point I'll make before I get into your specific question is any ashram is perfectly equipped to achieve perfection of spiritual life. It is not that in family life one cannot, or it is not as though if one chooses not to be in family life, they cannot either. Any ashram is perfectly equipped to achieve spiritual perfection.
What is ashram?
Ashram means like married life, or as a renunciate, or as a celibate. Okay? So like in our Vedic philosophy, we have pujaris, priests, who are celibate priests, and we have grihastha, or married priests. So now, Krishna consciousness, why one would go through the process of begetting children. And the process of begetting children is to raise a Krishna conscious family, to deliver souls back home to their eternal Father.
Do they stay together?
Nope. It's a little painful to hear, but it's true. Because these relationships are temporary. Who was our mother and father 100 lifetimes ago?
But why get into those relationships then? That's my...
It's a choice. Some enjoy the experience of a married life to help find partners in their spiritual journey and to raise a family. That's a desire one may have. So you can be in a relationship, in a family life, and still practice Krishna consciousness. Or you can choose not to. It's each individual's. Both paths have the potency or the potential to become fully perfected. And if you look at our Guru Parampara, you will see married and unmarried, both celibate and married. You'll see both. So there's no gradation. So some choose to enter family life. But if we choose to enter family life, we should enter for family life for this Krishna conscious purpose, not for our sense gratification. Otherwise, we'll become attached. And so when we say we should not become attached, it doesn't mean, oh, okay, I don't love my children anymore. No, I love them extraordinarily. But I love them as children of Krishna. So they're my children. I have taken responsibility to nurture their path back home to Godhead. I have a responsibility, having brought them into the world by the grace of the Lord. And now I'm taking that responsibility very seriously. And I'm nurturing them and their path back home to Godhead. So for that purpose, one may choose to enter Grihastha ashram, the married life. Yeah, because we know the relationships we have here are connected to the body. But in the spiritual world, our relationship was with Krishna. So the relationships we have with our loved ones now, they exist in the spiritual world in the sense that we all as individuals are singular focused in our relationship with Krishna. So we not only have one mother and father that we love, but we love everyone with the equal potency, the equal amount of affection. But ultimately we love Krishna. So the relationships we have in this life, we can appreciate the intensity of love that ultimately exists between us and the Lord. And the relationships we have in this life, we can think how I can help them find eternal peace and happiness. So it's not that, okay, my mother and father, or my brother and sister, or whatever, they're the body, they're the individual soul, as waves brings grains of sand together, the next wave's going to pull them apart, whatever. No. It's, if I really love them, I want to love their soul, not the body. Love should be between the soul. So how can I help their soul in their journey back home to the same peace and happiness that I aspire for myself? Then those relationships actually become more fulfilled. They become deeper and less superficial. Why do so many relationships fail? I hate to get onto this tangent now, but
I'm sorry.
no, but it's why? Because it's on the superficial platform of the body, which is ever changing and temporary. But when those relationships are built upon the connectivity of understanding the spirit soul within all of us, our relationships become much more deeper. They become more resilient to the challenges in life, the ups and downs, the changing of the seasons. So to truly express our love to our family, we discuss in the first verse of the second chapter. If I want to be compassionate, I should be compassionate to the soul, not to the body. That includes our loved ones. Because I'm not going to save the clothes of the drowning person, I want to save the person. It's okay? Any other questions or comments? Okay. So, it's 8:15. You want to discuss the Ajamil story now or next week? It's a bad question before dinner.
Next week.
Good. Actually, next week, I think there's a lot of travel. So we'll not meet next week because of the holiday. We'll meet the following week. One other announcement. Saturday, I don't know why the picture didn't come out. We're having our Rath Yatra picnic. That is Saturday at 11 a.m. And we'll have a wonderful experience to hear about the Rath Yatra festival and how we all can participate, enjoy a nice picnic prasadam in association of devotees. And so please join. You can come. The first park is at 10 Mile Road and Novi Road. 10 Mile Road and Taft Road. Just next to the Novi Civic Center. And this is where Lord Jagannath will come in 3 weeks and perform his very wonderful Rath Yatra festival. So we'll be going there to kind of inaugurate the festival and ask for mercy. So it's a fun time, so come and enjoy this picnic on Saturday at 11 a.m.
We have one question.
Yeah.
So they say like if we do some bad things, we have to go through hell. So where does hell figure in this, the transmigration of the soul from body to body?
Yeah. So in 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the places of hell are actually described quite elaborately. And actually that is why in the beginning of the 6th canto, Shukadev Goswami speaks about the story of Ajamil. So what happens is, based on the degree of our sinful activities, if one is performing extraordinarily sinful activities, one goes to the hellish planets to receive a substantial amount of the reactions, and then goes back into its stated life form based on its destination to continue its process of karma reactions. So hell is not an eternal place. It is not a place, it is not as though once you go to hell you're stuck there forever. You go there, you burn through your sinful reactions, and then you go back to wherever you are, but that balance is carried with you. It's like the accelerated consumption of the balance. So that is the purpose of the hellish planets, which are overseen by Yamaraj.
What's a really sinful thing?
What is a really sinful thing? Murder, stealing, adultery. You know, think about some of the crazy nonsense that happens in our world. You know, just read the newspaper. You want to see scary, sinful activities, just read the newspaper. Virtually every act that's reported on is one of sin. I mean, how much sin is involved in just taking the life of one cow? When you contribute to the taking of the life of one cow, you must take birth as a cow how many times? As many hairs as there are on the body of that cow, that many lives as a cow you must take.
When you say take the cow, does that mean eating it too? Or
Yeah.
Okay. So that means that everyone is going to do that in life.
Yeah,
Eventually, just
it's
because
a,
we don't know.
exactly. And that's why Krishna says, Sarva dharmam parityaja mam ekam sharanam bhaja aham tvam sarva papi. He says, my dear friend, my dear devotee, whatever you've done in the past unknowingly, I'm willing to forgive all of that. But don't do it now, because you know. So one can overcome mountains and mountains and mountains of past sins. And trust me, we may be thinking, boy, I've been pretty good. I got lots of Christmas presents. Santa was always kind to me. I was never bad. We only know one page of our book. Our life goes back millions of births. So who knows what we've done? But Krishna says, Aham tam sarva papido ma suchaha. He says, don't worry. Don't worry. Just practice Krishna consciousness. Sarva dharma. All these different occupations. Give them up. Ma may come. Surrender unto me. I'll take care of everything. So yes, the laws of karma are tough, but they're fair. And whatever good you do, you also get the good. If I spent my whole life feeding the poor and helping, I'm going to get all those good karmas too. But Krishna ultimately says, in bhakti, I will wipe the slate clean for you. Because if we're looking to that bird on that tree with us, he's ready to take us back. So yeah, what we've done in the past can be dangerous. But he says, don't worry. Just practice. Now you know. Work to avoid them. And it may not happen overnight even. But by purifying, by acquiring knowledge, we'll begin to see, that's probably not a good thing to do. Right? So most do, almost all do in ignorance. Not knowing. Not knowing. So remember, the Lord is very compassionate. Just like our child. A child makes an innocent mistake. We don't become so upset. It's when it's knowingly over and over and over again, that's when we get. Any other questions? Yeah.
What are different services of Krishna?
Different services of Krishna? So, Prahlad Maharaj explains that there are 9 processes of devotional service. This is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma, Nivedanam. So, hearing about the Lord, this, Shravanam, that is devotional service. Kirtanam, chanting, speaking about the Lord, that is devotional service. Ultimately, devotional service is Vishnu Smaranam, thinking about the Lord. Vandanam, Archanam, serving the deity of the Lord, offering prayers. Pada Sevanam, worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord. dasyam, rendering service, going to the temple, chopping vegetables that will be offered to the Lord. That's service. You know, pulling weeds from his garden, dusting a mirror, service. Singing for him, service. Okay? So all of these activities are devotional service. And there's a book called the Bhaktivedanta Sindhu, which is presented by Srila Rupa Goswami. There, he presents 64 very specific practices of bhakti that can help us in our devotional life. So we can get even further. But the simple thing is A, B, C, D. Association, books, chanting, prasadam, diet. A, association, B, books, C, chanting, D, diet. If we just do these 4 things, sufficient. Of these 9 processes, any one of them is fully sufficient to perfect and pure. It's not that you have to do all 9. You can pick one. But of those, Shravanam is the most important. Hearing. Why? Because from hearing, we begin to understand. Our attraction for Krishna grows. Our knowledge and desire to perform devotional service grows. So Shravanam is very, very important. Which is why we are gathering like this, so we can hear about this process, this endeavor. It's okay?
And what about helping people are in need?
Yeah.
So what kind of service? Like
What kind of
does it
service?
count to Krishna service?
Yeah. So when people are in need, I'll just pick an example. Someone is hungry. What to do, right? So we say that if someone is hungry, I can give them some food. If I give them some food, I will nourish their body. Right? But what benefit that will give them is very limited. Now, if I give them some food that was first offered to Krishna, and then I give them some food, I'm going to nourish their body. But now they're doing bhakti. They have made deposits in their spiritual bank account by eating. They have taken some of their past sins, wiped out, because they've done devotional service. So, in someone in need, we have to think, how can I help their soul? Because ultimately, if I can speak about the harsh reality and then the lining of it, what is the reason for someone's suffering? Huh? Past karma. So my view should be how I can help them in their past karma. So I may give a hungry person a meal, but if in their karma they're meant to be hungry for 10 days, and I feed them 1 day, they're still going to have to suffer 10 days of hunger. That's their karma. So instead, if I feed them prasadam, I have now reduced some of their future suffering. So we think on the platform of the soul. It's not that we ignore the body, because by saving the soul, you're going to save the body also. But if we just focus on doing philanthropy as we think socially, we forget the soul. So real philanthropy is saving the soul. So on that basis, we're all in need. So we should help people. We must help people. We must be philanthropic. If spiritual life does not develop compassion in our heart for all living entities, we must inquire why. Because the natural mode of compassion should manifest in all of our hearts. Compassion for not just our own suffering, but for everyone around us. You asked a beautiful question. Well, what about everyone that's doing this? What's going to happen? That's compassionate. That's a heart. That's a natural characteristic of devotional service. And so now we can think how I can help. What can I do within my capacity? So all of you acquire this knowledge, you study, and then you share it. You share it. You study, you begin chanting, acquire the knowledge, and whatever you've learned, share it. Don't keep it to yourself. You have a treasure. A bank account that no one can take. Help give it to someone else. It's okay? Any other questions? So shall we make some deposits into our spiritual bank account?